pleasure to be here again. Well, we started something together this year, and I think this is going to be a collaboration for a long period. I'm really anxious to talk with you today, and I would like to know if everybody there is ready for this session. As Bobby has told you, this is really informal. This is like a presentation, a chat. Well, we have a lot to talk today. I will share with you about Fsc and Iso, how they started, why they are so well accepted, right? And then I will also talk about food safety culture, and I will give you a tool, a framework, something that I suggest people can use to develop food safety culture in their organizations, okay? So we have here two main sections, right? And then we have a long time to talk and to chat, and don't leave, don't stay there until the end. I see that now we are over 200 food safety professionals here. This is really, really amazing. So don't leave until the end because, well, we have a chat and I have also something special prepared for the near future. Well, maybe if you are the kind of food safety professional that wants to go to another level, that wants to increase your knowledge, deepen your knowledge on Fsc and Iso, maybe you would like to hear about this. Okay, so stay with me. So great to be here. I will try not to be distracted by the chat, but well, it's always a temptation to see how people are talking and reacting there. But please, now, hope that you are in a quiet place. Hopefully you can unmute your telephone, take all the distractions, because, well, we are going to talk about Fsc and Iso, and I promise you, if you take attention to these sessions, you will know much more about how Iso and Fsc started and how to develop a food safety culture. So, are you ready? Can you send me some yes on the chat? So I'm sure that you are hearing me, that you are enjoying this. Okay, I can see Samula, Lea. Okay, I can't say the name because this is really fast now. But well, okay, this is awesome. I can't read you. There are so many yes. Great. So let's go. We are 210 now. That's really amazing. Let's go. I will share my screen now. And as I told you, well, this is a presentation about Fsc and Iso 22000, introduction and development of a food safety culture. Bobby did already a great job, I believe, introducing me, so I won't take any of your time with this, okay? Bobby already shared my website, but if you Google my name, Nuno F. Soares, you will find everything you need about me and more. At the end, I will also share with you a picture. If you have your app, the LinkedIn app with you, you can also join me there because this is LinkedIn is the place where I'm more active sharing about food safety. I'm sure many of you already are connected with me there, but well, if you are not, at the end, you will also have that opportunity, okay? So let me start with this picture because, listen to me, when I was looking for an image that worth 1,000 words, okay, to explain to you the relationship between Iso and Fsc, I remembered the symbol of yin and yang. Then what I did, well, I did what everybody does, right? I searched it in Google to see if what I remembered from this philosophy made sense, right? I end up in Wikipedia, where you can read yin and yang is an ancient Chinese philosophy, is a concept of dualism describing how seemingly opposite and contrary forces may actually be complementary, interconnected, and interdependent in the natural world, okay? So, even though Fsc and Iso are not oppositive or contrary forces, okay, by no means, but the second part of the philosophy is a good description of Fsc and Iso, so I decided to use this picture anyway. But before I start talking about a little bit the history of Iso and Fsc, I would like to release a poll, okay? I have prepared the poll with Bobby, and just to get a little bit to know more about the audience, and well, I would like to see if you can, if Bobby can release the link so people can reply to this Q&A. To this, okay, Bob, you already have the link for the survey. Okay, can you go there fast and can you reply to this question? Have you ever worked with ISO or Fsc 22000? Let me know. If you can use the link so you can get a better perspective. There are more questions there, right? But for now, just reply to the first one. Have you ever worked with ISO and or Fsc 22000? Okay, click the link and then you have there question number 1 where you can choose between yes or no. Okay, and I would love to get a pretty good idea of how many of you have already worked with, or how many of you this can be something that is totally new, right? So I will wait a few seconds more. Hopefully, Bobby, you are already getting some results, hopefully.
Yes to no.
Okay, let's wait for 1 more second or 2. I can see here that some people are also replying in the chat. Okay, thank you, Sharif, for doing it. Let's wait just 1 more minute, few seconds. I know we are many of us. Now we are. Okay, so Bobby is already sharing here. As you can see, well, nice. I see many people have replied. We have here 73% yeses and 20. Oh, well, this is 75-25. Okay, this is a good result. Okay, great. So we can see that most of you are already worked with Fsc and Iso. Okay, for the others that haven't still, well, I hope this is a good introduction to these 2 food safety management systems. Okay, let me get back my screen here. So let's talk a little bit about, oh my God, just a minute. Right, so let's talk a little bit about ISO. And listen to me. To talk about ISO, you have to go back to the black and white picture, because it was created, ISO, it was created in 1947, right? 1947, right? With 67 technical committees, right? Or groups of experts that were focusing in a specific subject. It is an international organization for standardization and is really, really global. One interesting detail is International Organization for Standardization would have different acronyms, right, in different language. It will be EOS in English, or OIN in French, and so on and so on. So the founders decided to give it a short form ISO, okay? Not ISO as an acronym from International Organization for Standardization, but from the Greek word isos, meaning equal. Wherever the country, wherever the language, wherever you are in the world, is always ISO. And why I like to bring history into these talks and these chats, because we must know history to understand how things develop, okay? And look, even in this small detail, the founders of ISO clearly defined what they were looking for. They were looking for a truly global organization that can be recognized by the same name all over the world. And the truth is that ISO is really, really global. Look at this map. This is from ISO, right? And you can see in blue all the countries that are member bodies of ISO. Okay, in yellow, the corresponding members, and in brown, subscribed members. This means that only few countries are gray, and they are not members of ISO, right? So this is very, very few countries, because ISO has 165 member bodies, right? 165. And ISO is also a non-profit foundation. This is important because it's relevant for their role in the world. They are not seeking for profit. They are doing this to increase standardization all over the world. The process of ISO working and the methods are very peculiar and somehow different from other organizations, okay? All changes in any of the ISO standards, all changes aim to be done by consensus. And as you can imagine, this is not easy inside a technical committee that is responsible for developing standards. For instance, ISO 22000 is only revised every 5 years, right? And the last version that was published in 2018, okay, took 3 years after the decision to be published, okay? So you can see that ISO is truly global, but of course, by the way it works, the way even they update the standards, the pace of updating is kind of slowly, right? And this is sometimes one of the things that people don't like so much about ISO. But look, this is not a sprint. This is something that people inside ISO like to do by consensus. So it requires a lot of talks, a lot of coming forwards, so people can reach a consensus about the topics, right? So let's move on a little bit to some history now, looking to the dates, right? So you may know that in 1997, it was published an annex, a very important annex to the Codex Alimentarius General Principles of Food Hygiene. This is one of the most important documents in the world regarding food safety, and it was updated, if you don't know, it was recently updated one more time in 2020, in the end of last year. But in 1990, it was first published in 1969, right? So it's an old document. But in 1997, it was published this annex, okay? The annex entitled Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, right? The HACCP, okay? System and guidelines for its application. And this annex was a reference. It was a cornerstone. It became an international reference for the development of the first version of ISO 22000 back in 2005, okay? In fact, this document is a cornerstone also for the development of many other food safety programs around the world, okay? But look, so 8 years after this annex was published, we got ISO 22000 published for the first time, right? And 4 years after ISO 22000, we got Fsc 22000, okay? And let's look a little bit now about to Fsc. And I told you, as I told you in the last slide, Fsc was published for the first time back in 2009. Why Fsc made sense to be published? Yet another one, because remember that at the time in 2005, there were already ISO, in 2009, sorry. In 2009, when Fsc was published, there was already ISO since 2005. There was already BRC, SQF, IFS. So why made sense to publish another food safety scheme? And the answer is easy. And the Fsc was really, since the beginning, very relevant, right from its first day, because it emerged from a concrete need that the industry, it was a new industry, a new need from the industry. We had ISO since 2005, right? But at the time, the industry claimed that ISO had a big problem. There was a lack of specific and detailed prerequisites, right? So ISO was released, they mentioned prerequisites, they still do, but there are not many details on how to implement prerequisites, right? So in 2008, 3 years after the first publication of ISO, sponsored by big companies like Danone, Kraft, Nestlé, Unilever, it was released a public available specification passed 220, okay, in 2008. And this public available standardization, outlined the requirements for controlling food safety hazards in food manufacturing environments. So this was the lack, what was missing, right? So we had ISO 2020 to 2005. We had now passed 220 2008, right? So now this makes sense. And big manufacturers wanted to have a common set of prerequisites that could be headed to ISO, right? And so emerged Fssc in 2009 as a combination of ISO 2000-2005, but using prerequisite specifications presented in PAS 220. At the moment, we are already in the second version of ISO, the 2018, and the PAS 220 now has been substituted by the ISO TS family that has different documents for different prerequisites programs, okay, with only one exception that is not used ISO TS, but still a PAS document. So let me share also a little bit about the Fssc history in a nutshell, okay? You know now that 2009 was the first version of ISO, right? Then, right after, in the next year, Gfsi benchmarked the version 1, right? So, since the beginning, and we are going to talk a little bit about Gfsi, but since the beginning, that Fsc was recognized by Gfsi, right? So we have here a new version, and we have here that was already added one more scope, not only in the production, but also animal production. Now we have in 2011 a second version, and we add the scope for packaging. In version 3, in 2013, more scopes were added: feed, animal farming, and quality. The quality model that allows that you can integrate also quality requisites inside Fssc. So you can have not only the food safety requisites based on ISO 22000, but you can also have quality requisites based on ISO 9001, right? So you can have both of them integrated, and even now it's available that you can do an integrated audit also for both the schemes. 2016, we have version 4, transport, retail, and catering. 2019, we have version 5, and 2020, we had most recently version 5.1. And now let's talk a little bit about numbers, and for that, I will ask you a second question. So using the same link, I don't know if Bobby can again share the link, maybe that is better. Using the same link, you can reply to the second question that we have prepared for today. So how many Fssc and ISO certificates are in the GCC region? Okay, how many? I did some research, and there we will find 4 options. Mine below 200, between 200 and 500, between 500 and 800, and above 800. Okay, so go to the link and reply, what do you believe are the amount of Fssc and ISO certificates in the GCC region, right? Let me know. What's your opinion? Below 200, 200 to 500, 500 to 800, or above 800? Really curious to see. Okay, we already have here some replies. Let's see how it's going. Question 2. Well, below 200, these are the pessimists, 30%. Now we have, well, almost 30% for 200, 500, 500, 800, 15%, and then above 800, 25%. Right. Okay. I'm sure you don't have an idea. It seems that most of the people are on the pessimist side, 200 to 500 or below 500. Okay, but let's see. I will reply to this question in few seconds. Okay, let me share with you again my screen. I will reply to you in a few minutes. Let's start to talk. Oh my God, always this problem. Let me start to share with you some numbers from ISO. Right, so this is from the survey from ISO. ISO does a survey only at August every year, more or less. So at the moment, the most updated values that we have about ISO is from 2019, right? We only have the 2020 values by the mid 2021. So what I'd like to emphasize here is, let me see if I can see my mouse here, is the ISO 22000, okay? As you can see, 33,502. This from 2018 to 2019, there was an increase here of more than 1,000 certificates all over the world, right? And when we look at the countries, we look at top 10 countries, you can see here that, well, there are some of your neighbors there in the region, right? So with a lot of certificates, we can see China is clearly the leading country, but then we have India, Greece, Japan, Italy, and so on and so on. But what is interesting here is pretty much all over the world you have certificates issued. If you go to this report, to this survey, you will find that are 163 countries have ISO 22000 certificates. Okay, if you look that, for instance, the United Nations has 193 countries, 193 countries. This means that in 84% of the countries, there are ISO 22000 certificates. This is a good idea how well spread, how well accepted it is here. Okay, looking to your region, I did my research, and look, these are numbers from 2019, okay? I'm not sure if they increase it. Probably they have increased it in the last year, or maybe not so much, but from the last numbers available, I will tell you that United Arab Emirates had 216, Saudi Arabia had 228, Qatar 56, Oman 56, Kuwait 45, and Bahrain 32. Okay, so if you sum these countries, you have 633 certificates in GCC. Okay, so you can see now that the only doubt that we have is that it's between 500 and 800 or above 800, because only by ISO in that region we have 633 certificates. Right, so next slide, let's move on to Fsc. Now let's click at Fsc. Well, this is a print screen I took from Fsc website in the beginning of this year. I believe that they changed the website and this displaying is not it's not available anymore, okay? But nevertheless, I kept this image also for you to see that, well, the amount of certificates that Fsc has already all over the world. So this was in the beginning of January. Now they are already over 25,000, and we are going to see that in a minute. Okay, and the more important is also that they are present in 154 countries. Okay, and these are pretty impressive numbers, because remember, this is the most recent certificate, the Food Safety Management System, right? So it's only 11 years. So this is really impressive for such a short history. and they are already in 154 countries and with more than 25,000 certificates. Now, look at this. Look at these numbers. This is a little bit more easy. This was done during the weekend, so this is really fresh. And you can see here that at the moment they are over 25,232 certificates yesterday when I did this sprint. And you can see here that you have certificates all over the world. You have here some big numbers in Europe, also in India, also in Japan, okay, North America. Well, you have some big numbers, but the most impressive is that you can see certificates all over the world, right? Again, remember that the 154 countries where Fsc is presented represent 80% of the 193 countries in the United Nations. So again, not only Fsc but also Iso, they both have this worldwide acceptance and application. And looking a little bit more close to your region, here you can have your region and you can see the certificates from Fsc. Okay, again, if you sum all, not by the picture, but I went to the table they have there, but if you select all the GCC countries, you can have at the moment 208 certificates in your region. Okay, if you add these to 633, it means that the correct answer would be above 800. Okay, and can you see the opportunities here? Because what are the opportunities? Well, you have 600 ISO. Many of these organizations may, in the future, if they want, even migrate to Fsc. Okay, and I will explain a little bit more about that in a minute. But you have also the opportunities of so many industries already certified by Fsc in this region, right? And they are growing, and they can grow. For instance, regarding Fsc, these numbers can rise not only because organization can choose to move from ISO to Fsc, but also because organization can want to use Fsc as their food safety management system, right? So I can see here a lot of opportunities in the future. But let's take a deep dive here in Fsc. Look how Fsc is built. Fsc is built from three major components. You have to have the ISO 22000, right? 2018, you have to have that document. So on the basis of Fsc, there is still the ISO document, and there will always be, right? But you have to add to this document, to these requirements, a specific prerequisites from the ISO TS families, and we are going to see which ones right in a minute. And then you have to add additional requirements. What are these additional requirements? These are requirements from Fsc, requirements that they believe, ISO doesn't address enough, okay? Remember, Fsc is benchmarked against Gfsi, and we are going to talk about a little bit about Gfsi in a minute, but they are benchmarked by Gfsi, and Gfsi has some requirements. And so Fsc, what it has, they look to ISO and they see, well, we believe that to address these requirements, we have to increment, to add some additional requirements, okay? And this is exactly what this is. So if you go to Fsc documents, you will have all the additional requirements there that are requirements that, or they are not present in ISO, for example, food defense, food fraud, at least in a clear, but this is not, I can go in that detail because they are present, but it's not a requirement, or at least it's only on a note. But some of them, they are not present at all, or some of them, they may be present, but Fsc believes that they should be increased, okay? Should be implemented in a more stricter way, or with more requirements that ISOs don't have. okay? So, right, here it is, okay? So here it is, this diagram. And here I try to show you, these are the additional requirements that you can find inside Fsc from the last version. And here is the, on the left, you have here the prerequisites. Remember that I told you that besides ISO, we need additional requirements here on the right, and we need prerequisites. I told you also that most the prerequisites were from ISO-TS family, and here you have them, all right? Here you have 6 ISO-TS documents from 6 different scopes or food categories, if you prefer. Food manufacturing, catering, farming, food packaging manufacturer, transport and storage, feed, and animal food. So if you look to this and you work in a catering, okay, what you need for Fsc? You need to implement ISO 22000, you need to implement ISO TS 22002-2, right? And then you must go to the additional requirements and implement the additional requirements. But do you have to implement each of the additional requirements? The reply is no, right? So you have in the additional requirements from Fssc, you have some additional requirements that are mandatory for all food categories. And you can see here in orange, okay, all these 5 and the 10. And the other on blue are additional requirements that are mandatory only for some of the food categories, okay? So you have to read and see if this requirement is applicable to your food category, okay? Remember that I told you that we have here below one food category that is still not inside the ISO-TS family, that is retail and wholesale, okay? If you work in retail and wholesale, you can be certified by Fssc. You have to have ISO 22000, you have to have implement PAS 2021, and you have to look to additional requirements that are mandatory for that food category, right? Makes sense? Well, I'm talking here about 30 minutes already. So I would like to see, I have more to talk with you. I have to finish this section from ISO and Fssc, and then we have to move to culture, but maybe just to see if everybody is still there, is still enjoying. Can you send me some message in the chat? Is this making sense? Can you still hear me? Okay. I noticed someone comment before that the slide wasn't moving, but well, because I was talking and I wasn't moving the slide. Okay, okay, see that everybody's some thumbs up. Thank you for your support. Let me drink a little bit. We are now 278. I am so proud of you, my God. So many people here looking forward to get skills, get information, develop some knowledge about food safety. This is amazing, right? So I saw someone asking, what is Gfsi? Well, Gfsi is like an umbrella. Look, Gfsi is an umbrella. Gfsi is an organization, an international organization that benchmarks food safety programs. What they do, they define as every year, usually every year, but they define a set of requirements for the harmonization of the food safety programs available. So what is the idea? The idea is that as we have, for instance, Fsc, EFS, SQF, BRC, GC, for example, you have many food safety programs around the world. And what they were born right at the beginning of this century, and the idea is that they can benchmark all the requirements. But for Fssc to be inside Gfsi benchmark, they have to comply with the requirements they have. Okay, so this is why I use this picture to illustrate that somehow Fssc was a way for ISO to go inside Gfsi. I don't want to go in detail because why ISO cannot be alone inside the Gfsi. It has to be with requirements, but also with governance. Well, it's not possible. So, but nevertheless, Fsc was able to do it, as I told you, because they had these additional requirements and they had some specific prerequisites, okay? And with that new things they introduced, they added to ISO, made possible that Fsc is inside Gfsi. And this is important. Why? Because, well, Gfsi is well recognized all over the world. Gfsi, some organizations at the moment already have the requirement for suppliers to be certified by one of these Gfsi systems. Okay, there are requirements that, for example, what the supplier has to be certified under one of the Gfsi food safety programs, right? So you may have, if you don't have still, you may have in the future the need from a client, from your say, well, you can continue to supply to me, but you have to implement one of the Gfsi recognized food safety programs. Okay, that can happen. If it still hasn't, that can happen in the near future. That is already a reality for many organizations. Okay, this is why we have to look careful to this, and this implementing ISO and Fsc can be really strategic in the future to open your organization for new markets or for new clients. I see that you are already sharing here some questions. Well, we have so many time to reply to questions in the end. So what I suggest is that you do those questions on the Q&A button, okay? As Bobby shared with you, this is the best place to do it, so we can, at the end, address all your questions. Well, just one more detail that is always interesting. All the documents from Fsc are free, not the documents from ISO, okay? But if you go to the Fsc website, you can get every document from Fsc for free, and you even have there translations, official translations. And this is very important because, well, sometimes we can lost some information in translations, and it's good that we can have official translations from the owner, from the certificate, from the food safety program owner, right? It's very good that you can have those documents translated for many languages, okay? This can be interesting. Just to tell you one more thing that, the last version, the 5.1 version from Fsc has not yet been translated, okay? So you won't find Fsc version 5.1 translated yet. And I asked Fsc, last time I asked them, they still haven't a date to do it. More, okay, looking into the future, what makes sense? Well, I believe that Fsc and Iso will still grow, okay? They will grow because organizations are more conscious, more aware of the importance of food safety, and that also the food chain is increasing their requirements and their demand for certifications for organizations that have any of the Gfsi food safety programs implemented, okay? So I believe that looking to the future, we don't know yet how would be the impact of COVID. We know that, for instance, in Fsc, there was no impact because they are still growing a lot in the last year. We don't know ISO, but well, it seems the impact for now was more on the audits than on reducing the growth of the organization that are certified by these food safety programs. So trying to combine everything in the two tables, well, what are the main similarities from Fsc and Iso? Well, they are both global, they are both food safety management systems, they are also both risk-based. They allowed integration, okay, Iso can integrate with ISO 9001, ISO 40000 if you want, and Fsc also can integrate the food safety and the quality. But of course, if you have food safety based on ISO 22000, of course, you can have, it's easier for you to integrate either other ISO documents, right? And they are both non-profit. What are the main differences? Well, prerequisites, okay, that are more detailed, that are present in ISO but with no details, and for Fsc you have to implement one of the specific prerequisites, GFSI recognition, and additional requirements. So now you understand better this picture, right? So you probably understand now that ISO and Fsc are really interconnected. They are really complementary and they are really interdependent. As you can see, and let me share with you, we have here in Portugal a very famous songwriter that in a song, he says, much more is what unites us than what separates us. Of course, this is more like a love song, but I believe that this is really well applied here in ISO and Fsc. They are really much more, they are much more points that unite them that separate them. They are really interconnected, complementary, and interdependent. Right, so we reached the second half, okay? Who is ready for some culture? Can I see some replies here on the chat? Just a minute, I also have to reduce, yes. Right, great. Well, let's move on to the second part of this presentation. Let's move on to culture. This is a topic, a hot topic in the world. And well, I would like to talk with you a little bit about what I believe we can do to implement food safety culture. So if Bobby, if you can now share again the link, I would like you to reply to another question. Okay. The third question you have there is, do you have a food safety culture in your organization or in your clients? Okay. Well, I believe many of you are professionals that work in organizations. Many of you may be consultants, auditors, whatever. So the question is at the moment, do you have a food safety culture in your organization or clients? This is a yes or no. And I would like to know your opinion and use the link, please. Okay. The second link, yes. Okay, the last one was strange because it was a little bit too big. Okay, so please use the link and send me your opinion. Do you have a food safety culture in your organization or clients? Really curious to know what is your opinion there. Yes, said Hema. Yes, said Rodora. Okay, mix of morality, motivated, and some are more. Okay, can we see the results? Maybe, Bobby. I hopefully you already have some results to share. Well, can you show, Bobby, or should I proceed? Or just, if you want to just...
setting it up. I'm setting it up now.
Okay, okay. So I think I will move on and I will ask, okay, I will ask you in a minute. All right, so you have there 88% said yes, and the other 15% or 12% have said no. Okay, you maybe think that there is no correct answer for this question, but in fact, there is one correct action. Okay. Culture is, and we are going to see in a few minutes what is the correct answer. Culture is a secret ingredient, right, in the food safety management system. success. And well, of course, this depends how do you think, or how do you measure success. But if success is avoiding people to die just because they hate some food, then culture is important for that success, okay? Now let me go back to my presentation. So, let me show some numbers from UN. According to the organization, 600 million people get sick after contaminated food, which equates to 1 in each 10, and 420,000 people die every year because of eating food. Okay? And although these numbers are impressive, it is important to give hearts and names to them. Look, we have a problem in culture because most of us believe that this is something that only happens to others. And in our case, as food safety professionals, it applies in two ways. Not only as consumers, we believe, well, only others we are going to end up in the hospital, but also to organizations where most of the organizations believe that this is some problem that happens to the others and not to our organization. And this is not true. Well, I don't have numbers. I show you always here a report from the European zone, okay? Well, because this is what I have available. If you look here in reported deaths, you can see the amount of reported deaths by several different diseases, right? What is important here is that we have, okay, nearly 600 deaths in 2018 in the European zone because of food. Almost more than 41,000 people got into the hospital. And you may say, well, if you go and if you look to the 36 countries and all the population, well, maybe these are not so many cases, or if you consider the amount of population in the European Union. But I have to tell you two things. First, I believe that many cases are unreported, so I don't believe these numbers are real. They are real, of course, but they are underreported, so they will, in my opinion, can be higher than this. Second, if one of those 600 people have died was your mother, if it was your son, if it was your brother, I think you will believe that this is bad, that you wouldn't consider, well, this is a low percentage, right? So we have to think to ourselves, think that we are also consumers, our mothers, our fathers, our daughters, our sons, all of them are consumers and may be affected by food, right? And we must be aware and we must be true and honest that, of course, there are all over the world very different situations, right? There are very different levels of food safety development all over the world, right? We have to be honest, of course, to understand that from the 600 million cases that I have talked before, many are related with simple consumption of non-potable water, okay? So we have to address that in the world, there is several different levels of development of food safety. But let me ask you how to implement food safety culture. GFSI defines culture as shared values, beliefs, and norms that affect mindset and behavior towards food safety, okay? A mature food safety culture is one in which the company vision and mission has been broken down into finer details of expectations for every department and every person. How can we do this? Because one thing is to know your expectations, right? So we expect that you do this. Another thing is people to fulfill the expectations. So can we or shall we yell at people what are your expectations? Or what they will do? Well, probably they will yell back, right? And in the end, maybe we are all yelling at each other. And this is not a problem. This is not a solution, okay? How can we sustain motivation? How can we improve awareness for food safety? And I like to share with you a book that I strongly recommend, okay? This is not probably a book that you were expecting. Maybe you were expecting Frank Yana's Food Safety Culture or something like that. But this book I strongly recommend it because the book is named Man's in Search for Meaning. And this is a book where it's very evident how important motivation and purpose are even to survive, okay? Precisely in a place where pressure and fear were used every day in concentration camp. Author Viktor Franklin, who was detained in different concentration camps, explains that it was easy to see when the detainees were going to die. It wasn't long after they gave up, believing it was worth continuing, where they have no longer any purpose to keep fighting. They need a purpose to keep fighting, to believe that it was worth it to continue to survive. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. This is a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, and is mentioned in the book. This means when we have a purpose to work, to struggle, and even to live, we humans can bear almost anything. And now the question is this: how can we build a food safety culture mindset and purpose inside each person? We have to understand that we have an ancient machine here inside our skull, our brain. Without understanding the brain, is very few we can do. Look, our brain essentially has three areas. The neocortex, right? Let's start by the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is very attached to the instinct. Is the area that does not distinguish us. This area doesn't distinguish from other animals. That's why it's called reptilian, right? Because it's basic reactions. That's what makes your breath and heart race when you hear a strange noise. You know what I mean? So you start, no, that when you are afraid. This is instinctive. We don't think that, okay? This is the same reaction if you are going to talk in public and you feel anxiety. It's also a response from our reptilian brain. The limbic brain is more associated with feelings, and the neocortex is more associated with management of emotions, rational and thinking brain, okay? The rational and thinking brain, right? So when we are talking about the why, like the why of food safety, we should point to the neocortex, okay? Knowing why we do what we do is the motivation people need to continue to do what they are supposed to do every day. Knowing, say it again, knowing why we do what we do is the motivation people need to continue to do what they are supposed to do day after day. Look to the reptilian brain. Well, if you try to motivate workers based on fear, fear is not the neocortex, is the reptilian brain. For example, okay, if you try to motivate workers based on fear of losing their job or losing their bonus, it may work in the short term. But as soon as they know the job market is offering many opportunities for them, the motivation ends. And most of them will work less or badly, especially when no one is looking, right? You probably know the hierarchy of Maslow needs, okay? You can see that below you have the layers of the reptilian and limbic brain, the more basic emotions, okay? But if you go to the upper levels, respect, self-esteem, status, These are needs that are addressed by the neocortex, right? Not the instinctive, the neocortex. And those layers are the secret to sustain motivation. Knowing and understanding why we do what we do is a cornerstone to fulfill the needs from those top levels, top layers. In food safety, it's the same thing. You can pursue people, you can scream, you can threaten them. It can work, but in the short term. In the long term, people only sustain motivation if they address these higher needs and know why they do what you do. And now, so what's the why of food safety? Are we in the business of controlling people? Is our purpose to check if people are washing their hands or doing the records? Reply to, is this our purpose? Checking people, controlling people, see if they are doing the records. Do we have to do that? Of course we have to do that. But will that make us wake up every day with energy? How can we inspire people to do their daily work? And sometimes we know that food safety work is routine work. That has to be done. But how can we do that so they have the energy, they have the drive to do it? We have to explain people that they have a higher purpose. We should make clear that they do what they do just what as a tool to achieve our ultimate purpose. And our ultimate purpose is saving people's life. We should all become the SLO, the Saving Lives Officer of our organization. This is why you do what you do every day. The first thing you have to do is have to believe in it. You have to believe that this is your mission. Because if you don't believe, you are never going to be able to bring others on board. But how can we create a food safety culture based on each one feeling as SLO? The first thing you have to know is this is a journey. This is not a sprint. This is something that takes time. And now I can reply to your question above. Do you have a food safety culture in your organization or clients? Culture always exists. If you have a group of people working together, a culture is automatically installed. In fact, many of the times, even within the same company, there are several cultures. The question is not if you have a culture, is that if you have the culture you want. Make sense? Do you want that a culture is settled without your control, or do you want to build a culture that best serves the objectives of the organization? And that's a long trip, because if nothing is done, a culture will be developed, but most likely is not the one you want. Who agrees with me? Can you send me a thumbs up in the chat if you agree with me, or a yes? Are these making sense? Thank you all. Well, I don't want to leave you with only words and not some tool to help you do this, okay? So, and this is the last thing I want to share with you in this more presentive exposure part. Well, how do you build this food safety culture house? This is a concept, the food safety culture house, a concept on how to lead people to become an SLO. On the basis of everything, listen to me, on the basis of everything, we have to establish an unequivocal relationship between lack of food safety and disease or death. This has to be clear for everyone in the organization. You have to be effective. We have to activate emotions. That's why that heart there, emotions. We have to make people feel, and that's the word, feel the impact of no food safety or lack of food safety. We have to make people feel empathic. We must use empathy, making sure people understand and feel what other people suffered or have suffered because of it, okay? For this is paramount that we can present real cases that people can relate to as close as possible to their reality, to their community. And maybe you are asking me, well, Nuno, but when you are doing this, are you not manipulating people? Well, let me ask you something. Do you know what's the difference between manipulating and leading? Do you know? Can you reply in the chat? Do you know what's the difference between manipulating and leading? Well, manipulating, in my opinion, is getting people to do something for your own benefit. To lead is to get people to do something for the benefit of the team or organization. Make sense? So you shouldn't be afraid of use what's known to make people move, because this is for a greater good. So even if we have to use some tricks, some ways to activate emotions on people, this is not manipulation, because you are not doing that for your own benefit. You are doing that for the benefit of the community, of the organization, and for the benefit of the world. Okay, so this is the first step. Now we have to move to something more, a little bit more rational, okay? You activate emotions and then you talk with reason also, okay? So first you must tell people what you do matter. And listen to me, this is not that fancy word or sentence, everybody is important. No, this is not what I mean. Is go to each person and tell me, well, or each group and tell them what you do is important, not a general word. Explain them what they do exactly and how that thing is important, right? And you have to say also how you do matters. So how you do it. So it's not only what you do that matters, but how you do it also matters. How you do it in the sense that it should be done every day with a renewed energy. That with the one more day, one more energy, one more mission, you know? So not only you have to explain people the what you do matter, but how you do also matter, right? And then you have to move on to what I call the icing on the top, on the top of the cake, that use specific communication. Communicate specific to each individual aspirations. In other words, you have to understand what moves each one, what moves people, because their needs are different. As you have seen above in the Maslow hierarchy, people are moved by different needs, by different ways. And so you must look at each one and communicate with them in the best way possible, so you can have a higher impact on what they do, okay? So this is the scheme. First, go for emotions. Explain people that no food safety, if you don't have food safety, it means this is and that. Show them real cases, people that died, people that suffered. Now, explain them exactly what they do, why what they do matter, and why how you do matters, right? And finally, finish with addressing each individual in a unique way to address their needs, okay? And look, that this movement, as you grow, as you move above in this food safety culture house, you are reducing your range. So maybe you can address all the organization with the food safety, no food safety equals this and that, but then you go and each time gets more personal, more individual. You have to tailor your communication so you can reach each one in the best way for them. Okay? Well, this was a long presentation. Everybody, I was just drinking a little bit here. And this is what I have prepared for you today, okay? As I told you in the beginning, how many of we are here. We are still 284 until the end. That's really amazing. I'm so proud of you holding that for all this time. Well, as I told you, you have here if you want to join me in LinkedIn. And well, we have something also prepared for you, and some special some surprise for many of you that maybe want to go a little bit deeper on these topics. But well, Bobby, now I am available. We can go to Q&A, and maybe Bobby, if you can give me just maybe if you come up, and I will need just 1 minute if you can to hold the presentation. I will back in 1 minute. You are muted. You are muted yet?
Yeah, I will take this opportunity to bring in the perspective of food safety and food safety culture. While Nuno is back, I want to share some data with you. I showed this yesterday for those of you who attended the Food Watch session. Look at the numbers that we're talking about. And as Nuno was saying, what we need to do is to create the need for work. And when you look at the need for work, these are the numbers that you need to have in your mind all the time. 1 in 10 people fall ill, and as Nuno said, 420,000 deaths in a year. When we look at Dubai specific data, what does this tell you about your work? And what does it tell you about the culture that we are targeting? So this is the data until 2019. And look at the data between 2018 and 2019. Look at what happened to certain organisms. Entamoeba, Salmonella, Giardia. In the case of Salmonella, we're seeing that it's just not double, it's much more than double the number of cases in 2018. We've got Salmonella typhi going up, and even food poisoning non-confirmed agents going up substantially. So this is a worrying number, and there is no other reason that you need to say that you cannot get complacent at your work. You need to really move forward and bring these numbers down. And that's when you can really say our training programs are working, our certifications are working. And when you have a true culture, that's what you want that's what you want to change. And these are reported cases. And for every reported case, we will have so many other cases that are not reported, as not many people go into the hospitals. And I want to keep your eyes on the last line here of salmonellosis and how many children get affected. You can see the numbers in Dubai. We've seen 10 children affected among males among less than 1 and females 10. So 20 children have been affected by salmonella in 2019. Less than 5 years old, 72 children have been affected. So that's a real worrying number. So when we look at our work, it could be a trader, it could be a restaurant, it could be a manufacturer. We all have the responsibility to go back and see how can we change these numbers? How can we protect more people? We can argue that the supply chain is complex and there are so many players in the market, but that's not good enough to say as an excuse for making these people sick. So when we look at food safety culture, keep these numbers always in your hand and keep looking at these numbers. That is what makes me work today. That's why I'm organizing this session, for instance, getting people from the best people around the world to come in and speak here. That's what is the inspiration. So keep sharpening your tools and make sure that you move forward in a possible way. Or to I just took the break to get those numbers there.
You did correctly, because I didn't have numbers from your region. Well, that's a perfect illustration that you need. But as I told you before, well, my idea, it's always great to have first people talking about what they happened to her. I have some videos that I sometimes use, but they are not so common. But people explain the experience, how they saw their mother dying, weakening every day for 2 or 3 weeks in the hospital, and then dying because of salmonella. So if we get these emotions out, if you get people emotional about these situations, and I am not a good example, because I'm very easily emotional, but but even for people that are not so much emotional, I'm pretty sure when you see a son crying because he lost the mother, because they went to the normal restaurant, they hate what they usually do, but once they had salmonella and she was dead. 3 weeks later she was dead. And then when we see this, well, people get more conscious about this is really an impact. Okay, this is not something that we feel a little bit sick and then we go over. Sometimes people end up in hospital and sometimes people die. Okay, so this is really our higher purpose. And someone was asking what is SLO, and I can tell again about that. SLO is a Saving Lives Officer. Okay, this is a movement I created, a concept that I created, and I even invited food safety professionals all over the world, and I have a card for a SLO number. So people become an SLO. What this means, of course, as you know, in organization we have the CEO, the COO, the financial FOO, well, whatever. We have a lot of that. And I was inviting people to add to that business card the SLO also, because each of us in the food chain, in this food supply chain, should be a Saving Lives Officer. What we do and how we do matters to save lives. So that's what is SLO. So, Bobby, well, how do you want to move on? Should we reply to some questions now?
Yes, I think it's Q&A time. So there are a lot of people who are asking questions, and we need to pick some and try and cover as much as possible, depending on your time. So I think we've answered some as we went. One important question here is, why do we still have two different standards, ISO 22000 and Fsc? Can't there be a standard which is the mother of these? And, well, in this connection, I also have this question. So ISO 20000 came up with the prerequisites now for manufacturing and catering separately. Does this in some way, account for the changes that Fsc 22000 also has when it comes to incorporation of prerequisites? So if someone has the ISO standard for prerequisites implemented along with the ISO 20000, can that be counted equivalent to Fsc 20000?
Okay, we have two standards because we have two organizations. so Gfsi, Gfsi in some way wanted to do what the question was looking for, the harmonization. Okay, Gfsi was born with a main mission. They said at the beginning, once certified, accept anywhere. What this meant was that if you have one of those certifications, it should be accepted everywhere. And so even if you have many, you shouldn't have to have more than one to comply with some clients' requirements. The truth is that that mission is not yet fulfilled. They already they don't use that sentence anymore. Now they use once certified, accepted anywhere. Okay, no, recognized everywhere. So it means that you don't accept. You may have to have more than one, but if you have one of these Gfsi standards, you are recognized everywhere, and that is true. That actually in the world, people are well accepting these standards. Okay, so as I told you, we have two organizations. That's why we have two. I'm not seeing in the near future that this can move to reduce the number of food safety programs. The second question, well, look, ISO 2018 has prerequisites inside. They list several prerequisites that organizations should implement, but they don't give any kind of detail. But on the same, they develop a series of ISO TS, that technical standards, where they detailed prerequisites for many food categories. So if you have ISO, you can have ISO and implement the ISO TS prerequisites, but the difference is that this is not mandatory. Okay, you can have ISO and you don't have to implement ISO TS. If you have Fsc, you have to have ISO and you have to have the prerequisites according to the ISO TS or the PAS 223. So the difference is simple if it's mandatory or not. ISO 22000 talks about the ISO TS technical specifications inside the standard, but it's not mandatory, it's only recommended. Okay, so people can implement according to the technical specification or they cannot. And that's the big difference between ISO and Fsc, because in Fsc they make the implementation of the prerequisites technical specifications mandatory.
Thanks to know. And here we've got a question: does GFSI talk about halal foods?
No, not that I'm aware. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to look to all the food safety programs that are present there, and I'm not sure, but I don't see any of them addressing halal foods, to be honest.
What are the 7 sectors Fssc is applicable?
Oh my God, it's easy to let me go here to these ones. Let me go back so just a minute, because you just go to the ISO here, and let me share again the screen so I don't miss any of them. So this is one: food manufacturing, catering, farming, food packaging manufacturing, transport and storage, feed and animal food production, and retail and wholesale. Okay, these 6 use the ISO TS family, and the retail and wholesale use the PAS 221. Okay.
Thank you. And Hussein Hassan here is saying that, hello, Bobby and Nuno. Thanks for arranging this.